This is Go to Radio, episode 582, recorded on August 6th, 2024. Hey friend, welcome in to Jupiter Broadcasting's weekly talk show, taking a pragmatic look at the art and the business of software development and the world of technology. My name is Chris, and shooing the family out of the recording den, it's our host, Mr. Dominic. Hello, Mike.
Hello. Yes. Always trying to keep quiet during recording time is. It's like shipping non-defective CPUs. Ooh.
Oh, it's like they don't even care you're recording a podcast. They don't even care that we're going to talk about, Google being a monopolist. Don't they care?
They don't care. One of them is I regret to say, an Android user who has been forced into the world of the iLife.
Oh, really? Boy,
Yes.
My kids are such iOS snobs. They razz me all the time about my Pixel. Yeah, it's so funny. So I don't know how that happened, but we now have news. Just yesterday evening, right, like the day before we record, it came out that the judge has ruled in the Google case that they are a monopolist in their U.S. antitrust case. They've maintained a monopoly in search and advertising markets. It's being considered a major victory for the Justice Department of the U.S. The judge agreed with the government that Google has a monopoly in general search services and general search text advertising. We don't know what kind of repercussions Google faces yet for this. Google, of course, plans to appeal the ruling. But this has been a string of wins for the DOJ. A lot of analysts are expecting that Apple and some of the other Google paid search placement deals are going to come to an end as a result of this. Those were a particular point of contention in this case. There's, I read through some of the docs. It's going to be pretty solid. I looked through some of this and I thought, okay, this is going to be ridiculous. And the more I read, Google's own internal studies showed, for example, that their search position is so strong that they could degrade the search experience and don't have to worry about losing users. They had a witness come in and talk about one of the reasons that Google pays Mozilla and pays Apple, pays Samsung, all these Android phone makers, is because it just helps entrench the ecosystem in a way where nobody wants to make a decision against Google. It's in part for the search stuff, but it's also like it makes it in everybody's best interest. All incentives align not to really rock the boat much when you're getting, $20 billion a year from Google or whatever it might be. And then they also had documents where Apple had done internal research and figured that, we could probably come up with our own search, or we could do a deal with Microsoft and they'd pay us, but by their numbers, they'd still be off by about $12 billion in revenue. So we're not going to do it. $12 billion over the first 5 years. That's too much loss. We'll just stick with Google. That's too good of a deal.
I mean, who turns down free cheddar?
Right. All of this kind of came together, and the judge decided that Google is indeed a monopoly, and not just a monopoly, but abusing their monopolist position. What do you think? Any initial reactions?
It's interesting, right? So this is the first successful, and I'm going to put that in the airiest of air quotes because we could be appealing this for 10 years, a la, Java, Oracle, Google, right? So that's just where we are in the U.S. these days. But it's interesting that the first successful monopoly case is not about any of the App Store stuff we rail about, right, or the Google Play Store.
Or the advertising area where they are. I mean, this is part of it, but that could have been the entire scope.
Right, but this is not the Yelp vindication that they've been so craving, right?
Exactly. Boy, Yelp is a long callback. They've been fighting this one for a while.
This is basically you're paying people to, in effect, right, by making yourself the default, snuff out your competitors or potential upstarts, which I agree, but, as a developer-focused program, has so little to do with what we do. The only thing I do think that will likely happen here is I actually see I'm no lawyer, right? We're not attorneys. I'm not sure that Google won't win on appeal. Because, one, just like Oracle Java, this is going to go all the way to the Supreme Court. And the idea... a lot of stuff, especially in the tech industry, runs on pay-for-privileged placement. And let's even take it out of tech. Let's talk about retail. This is a dirty thing I learned in my late teens when I was first working in tech, doing those Java applet mall kiosks. You can bribe retailers. It's not really a bribe, right? You pay them for like end caps and privileged space. Again, no attorney, but I wouldn't be shocked if Google was able to make a strong argument that that's exactly what they're doing. You can, like my iPhone defaults to DuckDuckGo because I knew how to set it that way. It's possible to get rid of their default. No, not get rid of them as default, but, change the setting.
Right.
So I don't know, right? It feels like if they were to win, if the government actually, this were to be upheld, I mean, I'm looking at you, Best Buy, with your monster cables and
Yeah, or what about search placement in the App Store?
Yeah, or what about something even more like down to earth for regular people? I do a lot of my shopping, in the Walmart app. Walmart routinely privileges its own in-house brands.
Oh, and Amazon has sponsored listings all the time now when you search for stuff.
So I'm not sure. I listened to what was it? Was it the Galloway and Swisher about this?
Okay.
But I don't see. I feel like Google has a strong appeal here, and I also feel like this case probably would have been lost. Again, not lawyers. 5 years ago, when everybody loved tech and thought they, you know what I mean. It feels like just the vibes, as the finance people would say. The vibes are just so against them.
It also seems like a antitrust case that may or may not have been brought in a different administration. This administration's been pretty tough on big tech.
Yeah, I mean, the more interesting antitrust angle, which this case does mention, but it's not the ruling they got, is the purchasing or acqui-hiring, which I think is actually a bigger deal, of potential upstart competitors to effectively kill them in the cradle.
Yeah.
Can I have my little soapbox about an app I loved?
Oh, yeah.
That Google themselves killed, just, I assume, to piss me off.
Stay a while and listen.
So there was an app called Oyster Books. I think Oyster. I don't know. I think the name of the corporation was like Oyster Books. The name of the app was Oyster, right? And they were based in New York. This is back when I lived up there. It was effectively a Netflix for books. I'm sure longtime listeners of the show will know that I'm a heavy Goodreads user, which, by the way, used to be an independent app too, and then got bought by Amazon. So, hey, heavy reader. But of course, buying books can get expensive, right? So a Netflix for books makes a lot of sense. Google bought them with the express purpose of killing them. They bought them, and within 90 days, just shut down the whole service.
Oh, yeah.
And they didn't roll it into, at the time, what was called Play Books or Google Books. They just killed it. That's my whole story. And that is, to me, a far more predatory monopolist practice.
I agree.
Than saying,
yeah.
hey, Uncle Tim, I'll give you X millions of dollars or billions of dollars if you make me the default.
It'd be like another podcast network buying Jupiter Broadcasting just to shut us down. So that way that way we didn't compete with them or something. It'd be awful.
That'd be terrible.
And I was prepared to come onto the show and roll out a rant. Because, last week we just talked about ChatGPT and SearchGPT and how that was likely going to help Google, and they may come up and appeal. Because I was sort of geared up to say, well, here we go. Once again, the DOJ's coming in and they're fixing the barn doors after the horses are already home. Like, Google is more under threat than they've ever been with things like Perplexity, the suite of OpenAI products, the Microsoft integration with AI search, and the fact that AI search, which is basically just going to be web search, is getting integrated in at the OS level by Apple and Microsoft. Like, it seems like Google is under threat, and also the quality of their product seems worse than it's ever been. So just natural market competitors are actually beginning to deliver products that genuinely compete with Google search. And we actually are at this crazy inflection point where you could see, it's probably not entirely likely, but you could see a route in the next 5 years where Google is a lot less significant. They don't seem to be operating very well these days. They don't seem to be responding to their competitors very well. And these other competitors are building genuinely good products. I honestly use Perplexity for my searching more than I use Google now. My entire rant was going to be like, look at the DOJ, those idiots over there. They've just now take action when the problem's almost solving itself. But I heard this clip on CNBC this morning. I want to play it for you because their argument, and this is a representative from the DOJ, their argument is this very inflection point is why it's important that we do this now. Like, we have to make sure that this nascent, new, competitive landscape survives.
Right now is perhaps the most critical inflection point we've seen in the search market in 15 years, and making sure that it has the opportunity, that competitors have the opportunity to compete on the merits, benefit of their own innovations, and win or lose based on the merits of their products is the most important thing right now.
What's your thoughts on that? Like, the reason they need to take this action now is because it sort of gives these competitors a window of opportunity, or it preserves that window of opportunity.
I have a little bit of a tough time with that. So it's funny, you've been using Perplexity. I just got into it's a tough name, Perplexity Pro, thanks to Uber One. I have a stupid account with them.
What do you get with Pro?
I don't know, because I've never had non-Pro.
Oh, okay.
It claims to be fancier,
all right.
basically.
Yeah.
I got to say, it's really good now, and I've done some comparison searches on. So, Chris, your favorite topic that I don't cover often because it annoys you. September 6th to September 8th, SCG-Con Tampa is happening.
Oh, good.
We'll be participating in 2 Magic the Gathering events.
How absolutely exciting.
Yes, I can feel just the amount of joy coming right off you.
No, I'm a big fan for you to be a fan. I'm a fan of you being a fan.
I love it. But because I'm a scumbag and I missed an entire season, I need to net deck something to build off of, right? So look up, decks that are currently legal in the new standard format that I could play and, not break the bank buying. I searched Google and the results were, I think it was almost an entire page of sponsored ads for like eBay sellers and like Star City Games and TCG Player, like the resellers. I asked Perplexity. It's like, hang on. Like a couple seconds later, it gives me 4 viable options and, most importantly, a reference to the sources for each so I could verify it. And it found like Magic the Gathering community sites like MTG Goldfish and Star City Games' actual blog instead of their reseller page and stuff like that, where I could be like, yeah, that's interesting. It probably saved me like an hour of combing through crap and then having to verify on my own that those decks were legal for the format. Those who don't know Magic the Gathering, the format rotates for what they call standard, and you automatically get disqualified if you have a card that's too old or has been banned. So
okay, good to know. Yeah, I've been dabbling because it's dangerous, with Unleashed.chat, and they specialize in the uncensored LLMs where you can ask it anything, and you can, so that's fun. I was playing
Wait. Uncensored? Is that like, I almost said Skinemax. I meant Cinemax after like 10 p.m.?
Yeah, no, it's like, so it's Unleashed.chat, and it's, so it won't, like, I've actually had, this is it. This is the problem right here. This is why I started looking. I was trying to get some suggestions for show description for This Week in Bitcoin. And what I did is I copied the show notes and I pasted them into Gemini. And I said, these are show notes for a pod, blah, blah, blah. I gave it this prompt that basically said, generate a few show name suggestions for me from these show notes. There's nothing political in there. It was a very just technical episode. And Gemini absolutely refused to cooperate because it told me that it doesn't engage in harmful politics or something like politics and current event or whatever it said to me. It was basically scolding me and told me it wouldn't cooperate. And then I told it, no, you're wrong. These are the show notes for a pug, re-explained myself. And it said, oh, you're absolutely right, but I refuse. It just basically scolded me every time.
So the exact thing I got Google Gemini to do a few weeks ago.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You're totally right, but I'm having did it vomit like Gemini?
No, I never got to do the vomit thing. So then I was like, well, this is insulting, and it feels like it's my parent and judging me.
Right.
And so I thought, okay, let's try to find one. And so that's when I found Unleashed.chat. But, I just think the Google products are not as competitive. And I think that this antitrust case, while perhaps, maybe necessary, maybe not, who knows, it's going to be very fascinating to watch. I'd love to kind of see this search market shooken up. But I think the second order effects on, yes, Apple, but maybe companies like Mozilla are going to be a big deal. Like, how does this, if they come in and they disrupt these search default exclusivity deals, how does that impact some of these open source projects they give money to? That's going to be something we'll just have to watch and see, I suppose. They don't even start discussing what the remediations are, what the punishment is, what Google must do. That process doesn't even start getting discussed until September. And then, there's probably like Google gets involved. There's probably a way for Google to do appeal. So we're talking next year, probably before we get a decision on what the quote-unquote punishment is. Coder.show/membership. Support the show directly and use the promo code SUMMER to take $1 a month off your membership forever. And yeah, you probably guessed it. It's going to be good during summer. Now, when does summer end? Well, that seems like probably the lyrics to a song. But what we want to talk about is supporting the show directly. Coder.show/membership. It gives you access to the ad-free version of the show. You also get the Coderly, which was just posted not too long ago. And you get the warm fuzzies of supporting the show directly. Now, if more of like doing it on your own, rugged, offline, online, self-hosted style kind of guy, gal thing, well, I don't know what that was, but I do know this. You can go to coder.show/boost and you can boost from the web now. So you can support whatever amount you like and send a message into the show at the frequency at which you like. Both those keep the show on the road. And if we're lucky, and everybody steps up and supports the show, it's been pretty good so far, I think we're going to make the entire year without advertising. After like a decade of being sold out on this show, we're going to go like a whole year, maybe more, without advertising. I think we're going to make all of 2024 perhaps without any sponsors except for you. Made by the people, for the people. It's the Coder Radio program. Come on, enjoy the simple pleasures of the Coder Radio program. Sign up and keep it going at coder.show/membership. Boy, it has been like the third or fourth bad week for Intel in a row. They had a massive miss in the market. Their stock is down 31% over the last month, with over $30 billion in market cap wiped out in a single day last week. And now Intel reports they're laying off 15% of their staff. Boy, Intel, it's bad. That right there, it kind of makes me sad.
You heard their new slogan, right?
What was that?
Intel, it hurts inside.
It's just, we don't have a great chip market in the United States. And I don't know of another large chip manufacturer that's U.S.-based other than Intel. And so if Intel falls apart or becomes less significant, I mean, I just can't imagine that. But, if this just, it looks like years of bad leadership. Mike, I watched one of their more recent CEOs about a year ago on it after they missed their market expectations for earnings. And the guy just sounded like an idiot. I listened to that and my heart sank at that time about a year ago because I realized they're screwed. Their leadership is bad. They don't understand the market that they're facing. And they're incapable of adjusting fast enough. And it also appears that this issue isn't the first time Intel's gone through something like this. Local hardware vendor Puget Systems, local to the JB studio, put out a fascinating blog post on their perspective with the Intel instability issues. And they write, amongst a bunch of other things, quote, "The most concerning part of all of us here at Puget Systems is the rise of the number of failures in the field, which we haven't seen this high since the 11th gen. We're seeing all of these failures happen after 6 months, which means we do expect elevated failure rates to continue for the foreseeable future, and possibly even after Intel issues the microcode patch." They say they see more, definitely with the 14th, but they're seeing issues with the 13th generation. They think more 14th generation Intel chips are going to start developing issues as time goes on. Based on the failure data that Puget Systems has collected, they say it's interesting to see that the 14th gen is still nowhere near the failure rates of the old Intel Core 11th gen processors back in 2021, and still substantially lower than failure rates they've seen with certain AMD Ryzen 500 or 7000 chips. That stuff just doesn't get the coverage. Looking at their data, though, overall, Puget Systems sees less failures than most report, Because, little pat on their back, since 2017, they've been testing and tweaking the voltages in-house before they ship the machines. They write, "Our stance at Puget Systems has been to mistrust the default settings on any motherboard. Instead, we commit to internally to test and apply BIOS settings, especially power settings, according to our own best practices with an emphasis following Intel and AMD guidelines. With Intel CPUs in particular, we pay close attention to voltage levels and time durations at which those levels are sustained. And they believe as a result of that, they've seen less failures than the industry as a whole. But the couple of key points that I took away in here that are really interesting. 14th gens seem to be failing as they age. The problem gets worse after the 6-month mark. And that this still hasn't gotten as bad as it was back in 2021 with the Intel Core 11th gen. That just didn't get the coverage. People were more in a we love Intel mood, I guess. But this has been a problem before. It's been a problem with some of the Ryzen systems. But it definitely is an acute problem with the 14th gen Intel chips.
It seems like it's just they don't have a solution at all.
Yeah. Well, and I think they're broken. I think they're broken as a company.
Well, they're busted, right? You saw that thing on The Verge where any damage done, they're not going to replace it, and it's permanent.
Yeah, we were speculating about that, and I just can't. It's just we'll see. I just can't imagine. Lawsuits start up. We'll see about that.
Well, there's already a white shoe class action law firm soliciting customers to join their lawsuit. I mean, this is one of the strangest situations I think we've seen in a long time because they're such a big company. You would expect them to be a little more
have their crap together.
Well, right, and like knowing they have a big legal department, no, they must be figuring the potential downside isn't as high as the cost to replace all these.
Yeah, I suppose
that's the only thing that makes sense.
What I see is a similarity with Google here. Intel and Google are at this super consequential point in history for them, where it feels like the next 5 years for both of these companies is going to make or break them. Right? Like I don't have that sense about Apple or Microsoft or AMD or Amazon. They're going to be fine. They're going to make lots of money. They're going to be fine. Intel and Google, however, they'll be around in 5 years, but they may be very different companies, and they're either going to have to improve or they're going to just continue to slide into the dumpster. But by the next presidential election, in the next cycle, we're going to have an answer as to where these companies are at. Like it feels massive when you have the Justice Department and all of these competitors and just Google's internal structure failing, all coming down at once on Google. Then you have Intel. Again, market structure and pressure from AMD, of course, but also from ARM and RISC and NVIDIA, absolutely NVIDIA. Then you also have their own internal structure is crumbling, and they can't seem to get their crap together. Very, very, very consequential next few years for both these companies. I find that remarkable. Let's talk about SeaweedFS, though. What do you say?
Yeah.
Something that's not really connected to a big company, just something you can keep on using.
Yeah, open source project. I'm actually using it in production now. Ooh.
Yeah.
It is a flat file storage solution that works well with active storage on Rails and a bunch of similar frameworks on, well, a lot of stuff, right? Like insert your Python framework of choice, a bunch of Java stuff. I mean, really anything, right? It's agnostic. It is written in Go. Yes, I told you I'd have something for the Gophers this week. I'm using it in lieu of Minio. The primary advantage of this is Minio has taken, I mean, Minio is not bad. I still like Minio, but Minio has definitely taken a turn where they've added a bunch of like blockchain-y stuff to it, I guess is the only way I could kind of put that, that you don't necessarily need to use. And there's a little bit of, just extra configuration you have to do. This, I hooked it up to a DO droplet and one of the DO flat file storage. I don't remember what they call them, but it's basically just, a flat file storage add-on you can add to the droplet.
Like a big volume.
Yeah, it's just a volume. Thank you. And I was up and running in maybe 10 minutes.
Wow.
That included creating the actual droplet and the Doku containers and all that good Docker stuff.
No kidding. See, I was looking at SeaweedFS and I thought, oh, geez, this looks complicated.
No, it's
No.
very simple because it's,
Okay.
it's one of their selling points that they actually brag about is like they're actually POSIX compliant. So you can just use, like if you're, for instance, the application I'm working on deployed is a Rails application, right? It's a Ruby. So you could just use all the good old, Ruby file system stuff if you want.
Ah, okay.
I'm not, because I'm doing Rails, and Active Record is just an abstraction that makes life easier and associates it to database entries and things like that. So I like it. It's open source. It's written in Go. You can run it, right? So Wes asked, how am I deploying it? You could deploy it in a container. I'm actually just running it. I just installed it natively. You could also compile it. A lot of ways to do it.
When I was looking at it, I was looking at how to get S3 support, and it just sounds like it's doable. And the way they kind of describe it as having three main components: the volume server, where you store the actual data; the master server to manage, if you have a cluster of these things; and then the filer, which is actually where you would implement the S3 or WebDAV or POSIX support. But it sounds like when you actually go to deploy it, like on a VPS, it's all just kind of one stack. It just deploys. You don't have to set up these three different containers or servers or anything like that.
Yeah, exactly. It's just one stack. I think it's going to get more popular. Now, this is me kind of future casting.
Sure.
It fills a niche, right? This is a common need in a lot of, especially enterprise applications. S3, in my opinion, is way too expensive.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I like it. Also, one of their main pitches is if you have a lot of relatively small documents and you need high performance for a lot of transactions, that is something I think they would do better than, say, a Minio.
Yeah, and I wonder if that'd be better for us with our Nextcloud instance, because we use S3 as a backend.
It could, right? Well, and you're self-hosting, so you're not paying those outrageous S3 bandwidth fees.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a way where you could move it to your own storage, which is much cheaper, and then still get an S3 interface. And, you're right. They tout designed for billions of files. It can handle a massive number of files efficiently. It's designed and optimized for fast data access. I like those things, Mike.
Yeah, absolutely. The only, I'd say, disadvantage over maybe some of the more built up larger solutions are you have to handle your own logic if you want to worry about caching and bandwidth and stuff like that. But most modern web frameworks do that for you a little bit, right? Like Rails does it. I'm pretty sure Django does. I know there's a lot of ways with Fast API to get clever when you're serving documents. So, it reminds me of a very Linux philosophy oriented solution to this problem, where it is agnostic to what you're doing. But if you want to get fancy, you can.
Yeah, and it sounds like if you want to break it out and distribute it, if you've got a massive cluster of systems, it would scale up to that. Or if you just want to have a single stack installation and you want to do S3 or, POSIX, it'll do that too. So SeaweedFS, it's Apache license. They describe it as fast, simple, and highly scalable distributed file system designed for efficient storage and management of large amounts of data. This might be perfect for us. I could see JB using something like this when we go. We're going to be moving to a colo, going from, a series of VPSs.
You and DHH.
Yeah, way too many VPSs.
Yeah.
To one big, beefy colo box running, Proxmox and VMs and a bunch of individual servers on there. And I could see SeaweedFS being a good solution for us. We use object storage on Linode right now. But when we move off and go onto our own colo, I could see using this. I like it. So, it's funny how did you discover this? Because this has been kind of on my low-key radar for, I don't know, 4 months, maybe 3 months. It's not a long time. I know the project's been around for a couple of years, but a few years. But how did you discover it?
I had a customer who wasn't exactly enthusiastic about Minio. For reasons, they wanted something a little more open sourcey, and I've been. I want to be careful because I love the Minio project. I think they do a lot of good stuff, but I've been looking for, I would say, less tied to S3 alternatives. Now, Wes makes a good point in the chat. You can of course it's packaged in Nix. Of course it is.
Yeah, buddy.
You can use multiple interfaces at once, right? So Active Record, I think Active Record probably just uses the POSIX one, although Active Record does have an S3 built into S3 interface too. But nothing stops you from using more than one, and that's particularly helpful if you have one data store, right? One volume. with multiple either microservices or multiple applications interfacing with it. For instance, your Rails guys are always going to want to use active storage. But I'm sure I have a customer like this. The man loves his Power BI, right? He just loves it. So if he had a way to interact with this via Power BI without causing me headaches on the Rails side, that would be great. And insert your storage abstraction here, right? It also does have an S3 interface.
Yeah, S3 is huge. So many applications just support S3.
Well, and let's be honest, I think most of our audience, if they're doing something like what I'm doing with these documents, are probably migrating off of S3. And I believe me, I know what those bills look like. So yeah, getting off of S3. Good idea.
Good call. All right, SeaweedFS. Put a link to that in the show notes at coder.show/582.
407 boosts to go.
All right, we got ourselves some boosts this week, Mr. Dominic, and we appreciate it because this is now a 100% audience-funded show. So your support makes a huge difference. I think if we can keep it up, especially this week, I think we're gonna round out the year completely listener-funded, which is a milestone for this show because this show's been sold out for years, and now here we are. Thank you, Adpocalypse. So let's get into it because we really appreciate the support from everybody. And we got a baller boost from unknown_sender who sends in an incredible 262,144 sats.
Hey, Rich Lobster!
And yes, it is a boost to vote for Ruby. And he says, I'm serious about it, guys. Well, you know what, Mr. _ I'm serious about it too. And we had this made in honor of Ruby being the official programming language of the Coder Radio program.
This one's for the Ruby devs, sipping code, not taking breaks. Gems and rails, no time for fails. Ruby's red like Bud Light sale. When the clock strikes 5, we crack open a can. Ruby, the official language of Coder Radio, man. From San Fran to Japan, the language is the bomb. Don't need no pep, Ruby's got a bomb. This one's for the Ruby devs, sipping code, not taking breaks. Gems and rails, no time for fails. Ruby's the official language of the Coder Radio program.
There you go, Mr. _ it feels good to be a Ruby fan.
I love everything about this. And I need you to send me that file.
I got a longer version, too. I can send
There's a longer for all. That should be on the next Coderly. You have to subscribe to get the full song.
Yeah. I got another version.
Who made
too.
that?
I did using one of those typical AI tools.
Oh.
Can you believe it? I know.
That came out really good.
It's surprising. I know. I've made a few other ones. They're pretty funny.
God.
Thank you, Unknown.
You better get one ready for Rust. They're not going to take this lying down.
Well, we'll see.
And the Gophers
We'll see.
could be back.
The Go guys. So Devator comes in with 254,100 sats.
I hoard that which your kind covet.
Hey, Rich Lobster!
Can you believe it? So as I promised in Spokane, even though it's late due to a nightmare of getting sats, here is my Bombard boost. Oh, right. Did we do this one last week?
Fuchsia or Bombard.
Yeah, I think we did.
Yeah, he says I wanted to add this to the Golang total, but unfortunately, at 254,000, it just missed out. Unknown sender.
And we did it last week.
Yeah, I think it's because I did a node migration, and I think that's why that got in there.
Because you know what you should be using. Rails, obviously.
Oh, yeah. Right.
Yes.
Right. That's what I get. Our podcast comes in, though, with a very handsome 91,000 sats.
Hey, Rich Lobster!
Hello, Mike and Chris. On the topic of the official language, you can't spell coder without R. Okay, it's a stretch, but if you have a subcategory for the official data science language, it'd be hard to beat R.
That's fair.
I love that he's advocating for a subcategory of the official show language. I mean, I think we could consider it. We'd have to have a meeting and discuss it. He wanted to share a fun story, too. He says, I built a custom web dashboard with R to analyze the podcast index database for quality metrics and detecting duplicate feeds. It won a runner-up prize for a recent table contest. The dashboard is at rpodcast.github.io/pod-db-dash. I'll put a link to that since it's kind of a weird URL.
It's actually I know Mr.
Oh,
R
yeah.
podcast, who chose not to use his name pretty well. One of those online community friends, and R scares me. Something about R, it doesn't feel. I know it's programming, whatever.
Oh my gosh, look at this. He even put like a complete explanation of the methodology he uses.
Oh, he documents everything.
Oh, he does, with the changelog on the website, and the about page is fantastic.
Yeah, his stuff is. We've had many conversations about why my blindness to R is a problem.
Yeah, and he's got his whole tech stack, so everything
Yep.
he used, you can go learn more about it. I will definitely link to that. Thank you, Eric. That is fantastic. Really, really appreciate that. That's a great example of how. You know what? Okay, I got to consider the subcategory. I got to consider it. Ambassador Delenn from Babylon 5. Ambassador Delenn comes in with 82,000 sats. Not sure if you guys saw this, but Elon Musk is suing OpenAI again. Claims that Sam Altman betrayed him, and the 83-page lawsuit claims that OpenAI's partnership with Microsoft flipped the narrative of the company's original mission. I'm not picking sides, but I hope Elon takes Sam down a peg with some spicy discovery.
So the problem with discovery is it goes both ways.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Like,
That's not going to happen. This is when you have too much money and you can just file frivolous lawsuits.
well, he canceled it and then he opened it up again.
Listen, I have total respect for the Teslas, the satellite stuff. SpaceX is truly, he brought back the possibilities of space that I think a lot of us dreamed about as kids. This is a man who cannot survive discovery. He just can't.
That's what I was thinking. Is like it's going to be more embarrassing for.
Well, not just
Elon
embarrassing.
over there.
It may be financially.
I'm here for it, though. I'll tell you what.
Uncle Elon's a strange dude, right?
Yeah,
Like, I don't know
I'm
what
actually
you're
kind of here
gonna
to see it. I'm get the popcorn ready.
I mean, oh my God! I mean, bring me my Hendrix. I need to lube up for this one, but it just like discovery things that might be
Yeah,
demanded by a judge in discovery. Text messages, emails, voicemails.
so far every time it's been very embarrassing for Elon when that stuff makes it.
Or
public.
he's withdrawn before he had to comply.
Yeah, that's probably a good
Right,
idea.
he's done that several times. So I don't know. I mean, I this whole thing makes me sad. I kind of agree with the general feeling of something weird happened with OpenAI, but the weird thing is not that weird. It's money, baby.
Yeah, although it's been a weird week for OpenAI. More people leaving in leadership positions, stepping down, et cetera, et cetera.
Or is this more of you took a shot at the king?
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say you're gonna that's to be expected. You're gonna have fallout, right?
Right.
You're gonna have still things settling out.
I kind of wish Uncle Elon, because I do think he's one of the brightest minds of this collective generation, right? Grouping in a few generations together, and he's just wasting his time on what, to me, I have no facts on this, but it just feels like it because I follow him on Weapon X and I see all these articles. It just feels like a personal slight, like a personal vendetta against Sam Altman. And I kind of can you both just be dicks separately?
It's another ego contest, just like
Right.
the U.S. presidential elections turned into.
Oh, who did he want to fight? He just said he wanted to fight somebody.
Yeah, I know.
Again.
I know. Let's not. Let's move on. Let's get.
Yeah, it's just weird. It's things when you drink too much on Twitter or do too much ketamine.
I want to say thank you. Those were our baller boosters right there. We had Ambassador, our podcast, and Devator, and unknown_sender. Thank you, everybody, very much, and we really appreciate it. The show is audience funded, and those matter more than ever. Now we get to Pleb 1, who sent us an adorable row of ducks, 2,222 sats. As far as the airlines at a 100% loss with this whole CrowdStrike thing, I heard a rumor that Southwest didn't do so bad, but most of their systems were running Windows 3.1 and Windows 95. Ha! I think that turned out to be debunked. I saw that too, and I saw that reported by multiple outlets. But then a couple of days later, I saw a debunking story getting shared around. So I don't know if it's true. And I'm not sure if it is true, if I like that or don't like it. Do I want to fly on an airline that's using Windows 3.1? Maybe I do. I don't know. Maybe I do, actually. I don't have to. A lot of problems come from networking. Let's just put it that way.
That's true. I mean, should your plane? Yeah. Well, but the plane does need some sort of network access, at least radio.
Adversary 17, also known as A DeVries 17, comes in with, you know what? Jar Jar Boost, 5,000 sats.
Use a boost.
Says, I'm with you, Chris. Wind blows sucks, but unfortunately in healthcare, we are stuck. There is hardly any vendor support for anything other than Windows, and there is the support that there is lacks functionality. My day job is healthcare IT running modern Citrix Metaframe. Mike and I have kvetched about this before, but it is very true that a lot of industry is entrenched with really old systems. And Mike, I've been trying to come up with a way to articulate this, but I feel like the technology sector failed society in that we deployed operating systems into critical positions before they were ready for that. Like the fact that this CrowdStrike thing took out Windows systems is on Microsoft to a degree. Windows should not be that brittle. Modern Windows systems since, I don't know, the last decade should have had boot fail counts with images they could flash back to, maybe, have a bootable shadow copy system.
Or auto boot into safe mode with some sort of like stack trace of what happened.
Yeah, or auto boot into safe mode and automatically disable all those drivers that are marked to be required to be started and just go with a minimal set by default.
Or whatever, like literally is like a driver assigned by Microsoft. Right.
Yeah.
That would be the way to do it. Although, to be fair to Microsoft, I don't know, this feels a little like kind of true, but sort of, being bitching about something they don't like for other reasons. According to them, the EU forced them to be this open.
Come
with
on,
folks like CrowdStrike,
come on.
Right? I don't know if it's true.
That's
what they say, though.
Yeah, I know. But even if you accept that, yes, they had to create like a kernel API layer that they opened up that gave CrowdStrike the ability to, have drivers load, blah, 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 crash the kernel, et cetera, et cetera. It still doesn't excuse the fragility of the boot system and the failure for the system to auto-recover into some kind of safe mode and disable drivers. Like, again, this is, for a consumer system, maybe it's a little overkill, for a workstation, a desktop, it'd be nice.
But the problem is these Windows machines get deployed as though they're not. And I've seen crazy deployments where people are trying to use like Windows Home for their... Yeah, it's... Everything should run Puppy Linux.
Just make it easy that way. I want to thank everybody who boosted. We had some great boosts. Of course, now Ruby is the official language of the Coder Radio program. And if you would like to dethrone...
I'm so excited about this.
Decrown. If you'd like to dethrone... Throne. That's what... Thank you.
He's so upset he can't even get his words together. A guy who, for a living, talks.
I know. It's a remarkable disruption on the show. And now we're in the territory where it earns you a song. But you'd have to probably... You'd have to beat Ruby now, which is at 262,000 sats.
Can we put a tax on it for languages I don't like PHP, like
you
2x?
Or at least an extra few sats in there.
Well, it could be like Pokemon cards. It's like double, right? It's a resistance.
That would be hard to dethrone too. Make it harder. So that's a good strategy.
Well, the easy thing for me is I don't have to find a Ruby thing because I do Ruby every day.
Hey-o. 7 boosters came in across 9 boosts, and we stacked a very impressive 443,365,000 sats. Thank you, everyone. Those sats are on sale right now, so it's a great time to get in on the fun, and you can boost from the web when you go to coder.show/boost. You just need something like the Cash App, Strike, Coinbase app, anything that does Lightning. Then you scan a QR code, send your message in, or get one of those new podcast apps and enjoy the revolution. New apps like Cloud Chapters, 90-second notifications after an episode goes out, live stream built in, and about 20 other features, including boosting, at podcastapps.com. Fountain FM, Podverse, and Cast-O-Matic are some of our community favorites. True fans also getting more and more attention as well. Thank you, everybody who boosts in and streams sats. We really, really appreciate that support. It goes directly to us, and then we decide what to do with it. Gives us, when the sats are on sale, we can hodl, and when the sats are pumping, we can sell. As a business, we can be strategic about it. And it is great. We really appreciate it. We also just love our members out there, too. Thank you for your direct support. Hope you enjoyed that recent Coderly and the ad-free version of the show that you get. You can sign up at coder.show/membership and use the promo code SUMMER and support us directly that way as well. Right before we go, one last quick story. We've gotten the first looks at the early features of Apple Intelligence, and Bloomberg's Mark Gurman didn't really hold back. And he's generally, he's pretty considerate towards Apple. And I pulled a few quotes from the article in case people get paywalled. Quote, after testing the first beta versions of Apple Intelligence myself, I can tell you that the features don't yet live up to the excitement. In their current state, they are a far cry from the game-changing technology that fans and investors hoped Apple Intelligence will become. You even see some analysts describing it as a breakthrough akin to the original iPhone. But let me be clear. At this point, Apple Intelligence isn't that. In any case, these are mainly niceties and they are not necessities. This is the one that's going to hurt. There is nothing so compelling yet that would make an iPhone 14 Pro user upgrade to an iPhone 16 just for Apple Intelligence.
I totally agree with the last line.
That's a bummer because that's the line Apple was hoping would be the exact opposite, that users would be compelled to upgrade to get the access to these new features.
Nah, yeah, I'm like he says, I'm a 14 Pro. I think it's a Max. But I missed the 15, and I don't think I'm going to do the 16 unless it's like one of those deals where Verizon's like, we're just giving it to you. You know?
Yeah.
I forgot. See, I feel bad because I don't have attribution, but I was watching some YouTuber. The guy's pretty good. He's Apple adjacent, I would say, right? He's not like locked in like our friends at ATP, but he's, he doesn't miss a product. I'll put it like
Sure.
He like every iteration. And I don't know how he got it or what he was doing, but he was doing something with the Apple Intelligence stuff. And he was just like, I think he said he felt like he was lied to or something akin to that. And I do apologize for not having attribution, but isn't that what we said when we did our coverage of the event? Like, this feels like they just had to say this for Wall Street.
Yep. Yeah, they had to respond.
I got to tell you, like, I didn't want to cover this week, but I'm just going to take a very, very fast tangent. I don't know why, and I'm sure I'm wrong, and if anybody wants to anonymously write in from OpenAI and tell me that I'm wrong, that's fine, and explain why. I'm pretty sure ChatGPT 4.0 is significantly dumber than ChatGPT 4.
I do feel like these tools have gotten a bit worse. I don't know. It feels like I'd love people to boost it and tell us if they feel like their AI tools they use are getting worse. ChatGPT seems like it's gotten worse, and Gemini seems like it's gotten worse to me.
Yeah. I mean, and now this may be like I'm not. Could this be like we're jaded now and we're just not impressed anymore? But
I don't think so because I use the same exact prompt every time, and I'm getting worse and worse results. So I don't know. We talked about this during our WWDC coverage. And I think my comment was something like, if these features suck, it's going to be devastating, right? These companies don't want to be known for having half-baked features. And again, this is all beta, it's all early, and this is all going to get tweaked, especially the more people use it. But one beta tester noted that the helpful mail AI integration has flagged a phishing email as a priority email, and it moved it to the top of his inbox.
Woof.
Yeah, and that's, again, probably not super common, but I think of like my wife who uses Apple Mail for her business. She's got like a whole setup. I would say she's a pro Apple Mail user. Like it does things I didn't know it does.
Just a question, like her business, is she like an Apple Power user for their suite of productivity stuff?
To a degree, I mean, she uses Linux for a lot of the heavy lifting stuff, so LibreOffice.
Yeah, but is that
basically.
like my wife uses an
Chrome.
iPhone because I forced her to?
Yes.
Is that kind of what you did?
Yeah, and she does so much of her business on the iPhone because what she does is she has a clinic, but she also goes remote for a few days out of the week. And so to be able to do charting and things like that in a secure little app on the iPhone, she brings a Bluetooth keyboard and a little stand.
Oh, really?
She'll sit there at somebody's house or at another clinic that she's visiting, and she'll just do her charting right there on the phone.
Oh, wow.
I know. It's wild to see how much she can get done. And then she uses Apple Mail for a lot of the correspondence. And so I would hate to see this kind of thing get her, because what it elevated seems really hard for AI to figure out. It was essentially a phishing attempt to get somebody to renew their Office 365 subscription. And it looks kind of legit. Microsoft billing, Office 365 is who it's from. Subscription renewal fail. Renew before August 4th, 2024. And then you click the link, and you're giving them your payment information. And when it takes you there, when you open up the whole email, it's got a Copilot logo on there. It's branded. It's got a nice blue resubscribe button that you can click. It's got a 1-800 support number on there that probably doesn't work, but they put it on there to make it look legit. The entire thing, end to end, seems really smooth. And I can understand how that would throw off an AI assistant thing too. Like, it looks legitimate. But a human might be able to suss out that the domain was officemsn-micro.com. You know, a human might look at the headers possibly.
Yeah, maybe.
But if you get something elevated, yeah, I know it's hard to say. It's hard to say.
Yeah.
The email address should have tipped it off, but
Well, it's tough. People are busy, right? And I'm sure, you know, I know lots of people that if they got like an email from SharePoint or Office 365 that they were going to lose access would immediately slap in that corporate credit card.
yep. That's what got old John Podesta. That's how he got,
right. That's
he got
what
his
got
credentials
John
fished.
Yep.
Yep. Yeah, you got to go here and change your IT passwords. It's an email from IT saying click here to change your password. So also, just so we know, everybody's aware, we're not going to get some features until next year, sometime in 2025. Personal context, so like Siri using data from photos, calendar, events, messages, not shipping. Semantic indexing, where Apple Intelligence creates an on-device index from emails and images, that's not happening. App control, which is like one of the only things developers get out of any of this, where you can, you know, use the intent systems to signal what your app can do, that's not shipping. On-screen awareness, where Siri can understand the content on the screen and the app's content, that's not shipping until 2025. And only English until later 2025 for different regions as they roll that out.
And hot take that we can lose a bet on, or I could lose a bet on, I bet at least one of these things doesn't ship till 26.
Ooh, I like that. That's a good one. Like, one of them is so complicated.
Or it ships in such a broken way. It's like Stage Manager when it shipped. But I think I know which one it's going to be too.
I want to know, like, is one of these, because, you know, they're going to support the i15, like the iPhone 15 Pro Max or some of the iPhone 15s will be able to run some of this. Do you think there's going to be like one of these that has a bug that just like kills the battery and pegs the CPU? Like, that could also totally be a thing. It's a lot of work they're moving on device. I like that it's on device. I prefer on device. But we should acknowledge the massive overhead that we are adding to these devices with limited battery.
I mean, there's so many potential problems here.
Yeah.
The personal context one has a lot of scary possible outcomes.
It just feels like, and I wouldn't want this, but this feels like what the cloud was born to handle, is large,
Right.
Just
large data sets.
processing it for a while offline and then delivering the results lean to a client. Like, that's sort of like the sweet spot of cloud computing. And Apple's like, nah, screw that. Our whole brand's on device. So we'll just put more processors in there.
Oh, but I think we should move on from this.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
It Chris, the point was to make the announcement to boost the stock price.
Right.
You don't actually have to ship it. So that's where we are.
Well, maybe you know what? Maybe eventually they do nail it all. And they get the on-device stuff working really good.
No,
and
they're not going to nail it all.
Maybe
It's going to be like Siri as she is today.
God, I hope not. I hope not.
I don't see how it can't be. They haven't been able to. Okay, they still can't master that when I'm like, play this on my HomePod, that there's like a delay, and sometimes it doesn't work.
I know.
And if I say, hey, do this, finding the song I'm asking for that I've listened to 100 times and find the right one. I almost wish they said we can't do this till 26, and we're just shoring up the existing features.
Or like, hey, you know what? The network needs to be better. We need better network infrastructure and connectivity for this stuff to actually reliably work. So we announced the Apple Infrastructure Investment Year. And it's a year where we're going to help cellular carriers build out their network so you have great signal and coverage.
You know what you want.
What do I want?
That's
Starlink?
Snow Leopard.
Oh,
that's
right.
exactly what Snow Leopard was, right?
I want the iPhone Snow Leopard year.
Right. It's no features. We're just fixing all the broken crap. And a bunch of developer kits, although they don't seem to like to do that anymore, the developer part. So
Yeah. All right, well.
Get the hell out of here.
Where would you like to send the good people before we get out of here?
I can go check out alice.dev or even spicier, dare I say, more awakened.
Yeah.
I am testing out Threads.
Okay.
And I think my name is Dominuko there too.
You're testing out Threads. I'm testing out Nostr. We are not the same.
We are not the same.
But yet, somehow it comes together. All right, there you go. So Threads, you can find, if you want to try out Nostr yourself, you maniac, you weirdo, come over to chrisles.com and check it out. It's something, You can find my NPub on there, and you can follow me on Nostr. Links to what we talked about today are at coder.show/582. Of course, we got a whole bunch of links over there at the coder.show, including our live page, because we are live, We do that on a Tuesday at noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern. Love to have you join us over there. Our chat room's going 24/7, and especially during our live streams, you can get in that at coder.show/matrix. Then, after you're done listening to this here podcast, there's a whole bunch of great shows over at jupiterbroadcasting.com. First look at the Cosmic Desktop and more in Linux Unplugged this week. You can go find that. And of course, listen to all the great shows. Thank you so much for tuning in this week's episode of the Coder Radio program. We appreciate you, and I hope to see you right back here next week.